Hi, this is Mike, and in the next 6 minutes, I'm going to basically spit in the face of every self-righteous relationship guru, sex advice columnist, and magazine article you've ever listened to, show you why shelling out hard-earned cash for flowers, jewelry, and expensive nights out on the town could actually be murdering your love life, and teach you, as weird as this sounds, how you can use tiny little text messages sent from your cell phone to get your wife incredibly turned on, feeling very naughty, and craving your attention on demand, whenever, wherever, and however you want. By the end of this short presentation, which won't be up for long, you'll feel like you have the magic keys to your wife's libido and will watch your love life take off like the space shuttle, no matter how many years or decades you've been married, no matter how many kids you have or how little privacy, no matter how busy your job is or how little time you have, no matter how tired she is, sleeping will be the last thing on her mind. No matter how down on her body she's been, she'll feel like the sexiest woman in the world. And no matter how hopeless you think things have got so far. In fact, if you follow what I say in this video and put it into action like hundreds of guys have before you, your wife will thank you, will brag to her friends about the amazing heat in your marriage, will be happier than you've seen her in years, and will start thinking of you as her own personal sex god, who she'd do almost anything to please, even if you've got a bit of a gut and don't go to the gym. Who the heck am I to make such a huge promise, and why should you listen to me? My name is Michael Fiore, and as embarrassing as it is for me to admit, I've never been married or even been close to getting married. I've never lived with a girlfriend except 3 awful months back in college, and I've never been in a relationship that lasted longer than 3.5 years, and for most of that relationship, I was incredibly frustrated and miserable, had no idea how to turn my girlfriend on. I'm just a regular guy who stumbled onto a weird but freakishly effective way to turn any woman on, which has nothing to do with what most of the experts tell you about romance. Honestly, as a married guy, there's no reason at all for you to soak up what I have to say today, except what I'm going to teach you right now has already transformed the lives of hundreds of married guys just like you. And every day I get dozens of emails just like this. Scared the bejesus out of me at first, Michael, but I followed what you said and I was amazed at the results. I never thought my wife would be the one to initiate sex. Now she can't get enough. Mark L., Massachusetts, married 15 years with 3 kids. I sent 3 texts and my wife was so hot for me when I got home. We had the best sex in years. Thank you, Michael. You've got to share this stuff with the world. Tim Thomas, Las Vegas, Nevada, married 2 years with 1 baby on the way. This couldn't have come at a better time. My wife and I were right in the middle of a dry patch when I discovered your stuff. Her reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Now her friends keep asking me to teach their husbands how to do this. Jim from Seattle, Washington, married 18 years with 2 kids. Okay, so when I first started sharing this texting formula with my frustrated guy friends, a lot of them said to me, using text messages to get my wife into bed, no freaking way that would work for me. And if you're like a lot of married guys, you might have fallen for the dangerous myth that says your wife just isn't that into sex anymore, that having a crappy sex life is just part of being married, that you've tried everything without any success. Or you might think if you ever had the balls to send your wife a dirty text message like some horny teenager, you'd end up sleeping on the couch and choking down leftovers for a week. That's a really common response from men. In fact, a lot of guys who I first talked to about this say that. Now, let me tell you why it's 100% not true and why your wife is desperately waiting for you to use this stuff to take control. To do that, first we need to debunk a common and dangerous myth about your wife's sex drive and show you why it's probably a lot higher than you think it is, and is actually a lot higher than she thinks it is too. Fact. As guys, we hit our sexual peak where we're our most virile and most easily turned on around age 17, which is why teenage boys walk around with permanent hard-ons and get excited at the touch of a passing breeze. But women don't hit their sexual peak until they're in their 30s. It sounds incredible, but your average 35-year-old woman really is as ridiculously horny and sex-obsessed as a 15-year-old boy who just discovered dad's hidden stack of Playboys. Unlike teenage boys, though, women are a lot better at hiding just how amped up they actually are. What this means is that your wife, if she's in her late 20s, 30s, 40s, or even 50s, is secretly a sexual live wire just waiting to be set loose. If you know how to flip the switch and give her permission to act. Okay, so if your wife is actually secretly horny and subconsciously wants sex even more than you do, why isn't she jumping your bones every time you stumble home after a hard day at work? That's a really good question. And here's the really good answer. In order for your wife to actually act on her secret sex drive that I swear is driving her crazy, she needs 3 things. First, your wife needs you to wake up her desire by drawing her attention to it in a way she's hardwired to respond to. This goes down to the use it or lose it idea. A lot of women, because they're not given the right kind of stuff every day, kind of sublimate their sex drive. So we're going to teach you how to wake it up. Second, you need to give her permission to act on her sexual impulses without fear of being judged or feeling like a slut. As her husband, you've actually got a huge advantage here over us single guys. And third, you need to make her feel truly, undeniably sexy so she can get over any body issues and come after you for what she wants. Really, Maxim ruins everything and makes a lot of women who are really beautiful and sexy feel like they don't measure up. So how do you do all of that? Well, you do it by understanding a fundamental truth about women that changed my life and the lives of every guy I've shared this with so far. As guys, we're genetically programmed to respond to what we see. That's why all guys really like porn while a lot of women hate it. Show your average straight guy a picture of a hot woman in a bikini, a cheerleader doing the splits, or pretty much anything that vaguely resembles a breast, and we'll go from 0 to hump-o-matic in just a couple of seconds. See what I mean? Guys are so easy. But women are, different, and you can't treat them like guys and expect the same response. Yeah, I know that's not really news to you, but a lot of guys get this really wrong. Unlike us guys, women are not that turned on by what they see. Instead, your wife's brain is pre-programmed and evolved to shift into hot and heavy overdrive by what she feels and what she imagines. Those are both really important words. Your wife's biggest erogenous zone is her mind. And the easiest way to stroke that erogenous zone and get her secret, ravenous sex drive to come out to play, it isn't through pictures, lavish dinners, or expensive gifts. Those might make her feel grateful, but they won't turn her on. Nope, the way to get your wife to actually want you and throw you down on the bed for a heavy session of honeymoon sex is with mind-tickling stories, sexy situations, and sexy language. Need some proof? Let's just compare guy porn, otherwise known as porn, with women porn, otherwise known as corset-ripping movies, dirty stories in Cosmo, and romance novels with ridiculously buff Fabio clones on the cover. Have you ever actually read a romance novel? I have, and I can tell you those things are ridiculously dirty. In fact, even a tame romance novel is in many ways worse than the dirtiest, kinkiest porn you've ever watched. Let me show you what I mean. Here's a picture of what turns guys on. Beautiful girl, great smile, nice skin, breasts, hips, everything that really appeals to us on a primal genetic level. Now here's what turns women on. Responsive to every nuance of his seduction, she clutched handfuls of his hair and burst into tears as the climax she tried so hard to delay swept over her in racking spasms no man could withstand. Seriously, this is from a popular romance novel that goes right to the core of what turns women on. Here's something else that turns guys on. Beautiful girl in a bikini, great abs, all those kind of things. Women. She cried out, for he was there between her legs, and it was his tongue now touching her, tasting her, laving up her essence, totally seriously. Here's something else turns guys on. A guy in bed with 2 beautiful girls about to do, well, we can only hope we know what. What turns women on? Her pelvis was pressed hard against his, gyrating, pulling them even more deeply into the velvet, warm walls of her femininity. Completely serious. This is from an actual romance novel that's out there in the world that women are eating up. Women all across the country are eating this kind of stuff up. Even women who you would think would never read this kind of thing, when they read this kind of language, something strange happens to their brains. Do you get it, or do I have to go on? Because I really don't want to have to read more of those. Pictures are all it takes for a guy, but language and imagery are honestly the magic keys to a woman's mind, a woman's sexual mind. I'm using romance novels as an example, but this honestly applies to all women. Pick up any chick book or women's magazine at random, and you'll find the same thing: hair pulling and stolen kisses and stories about innocent women who are suddenly unable to control themselves and are overcome with lust, so that they're not really responsible for their actions anymore. That's a core concept we'll touch on more later. And they're all stuffed full of language specifically designed to hit the pleasure center of her mind like the purest, most addictive crack on the planet. So how do you deliver these magic keys to your wife wherever she is and whenever you want? How do you, as a married guy who's probably really busy and has a job and kids and all those things to worry about, how do you light a massive spark under your sex life literally by pushing a button? Well, the answer is text messaging in a very specific way. Plain and simple, and as weird as it sounds, sending smart text messages to your wife during the day, wherever she is, can have a shocking and drastic change both on your sex life and in the way your wife looks at you, thinks about you, and treats you. Why? Because by texting your wife, you're taking control, you're feeding your wife the kind of secret fantasies she's genetically programmed to respond to wherever she is, whenever you want, and building up her desire to a fever pitch so she can't help but act on it. With text, you can have a secret conversation with your wife where you wake up her secret ravenous sex drive pretty much on demand. Do it right and she'll feel like the sexiest, most desired woman on the planet. Will brag to her friends about the spark you've put in your marriage, and will finally feel like she has permission to give in to her secret desires with a level of passion and overwhelming lust you haven't seen since the night of your honeymoon, if then. And you'll do it without having to be romantic, without shelling out a bunch of money on expensive presents, without actually writing anything yourself at all. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, Michael, I get how this works, but what's the right way to do this? I mean, you can't just send any random text message, right? And what do you actually say? Well, I'm really glad you asked, because with your permission, I'm going to share with you a few important things. First, I'm going to share with you the secret 4-step wife texting formula proven out by hundreds of guys so far that takes your wife from cold fish to panting and ready in just a few short hours. I also want to share with you the irresistible 2-word message you can send right now, which your wife will drop everything to respond to, even if she's at work and not in the mood. Very powerful stuff. I also want to share with you the self-esteem escalator text that short circuits her body issues and has her counting the minutes until she gets to see you. If you're sick of hearing your wife say she's fat, try this and you'll be astounded by the results. I also want to share with you my weird method for cloning her greatest sexual experience and getting her to re-experience her greatest ever pleasure while she's standing in line at the grocery store. This is incredibly powerful stuff where you take the best sexual experience she ever had, hopefully with you, and you make her feel like it's happening to her again wherever she is. I also want to teach you how to make texting into a dirty channel she tunes into whenever you send her a message, where your wife can finally give in to her pent-up desire and be as flirty and hungry for you as she's always wanted. I also want to teach you why your wife wants you to objectify her and how to use non-creepy lust to push her from mommy mode to sex goddess in just a few easy steps and just a few easy texts as well. Also, you're going to learn how to telepathically read your wife's mind and feed back to her deepest sexual fantasies, even if she doesn't know what they are herself, and I'm going to tell you right now, she probably doesn't. You're going to learn why your wife is yearning for attention and how to use simple fantasy stories to have her happier and more affectionate than she's ever been in years. But most of all, I want to share with you this simple method for building massive desire in your wife, step by step throughout the day, so that she can't help but give herself to you the moment you walk in the door. I've seen it again and again. I want to see it again with you. How? By introducing you to a simple, easy-to-use system called Text Your Wife into Bed. Here's the weird history of the Text Your Wife into Bed system. I created this formula actually for myself as a single guy. Last year, when I first started getting into this texting thing, I found myself dating some women and I didn't have enough time